So my name is Armin, I'm a product specialist with Notch. I have my colleague Ryan here with me on the other side of the wire. And today we're going to talk about awards, and that's quite interesting subject for people who work in, let's say, corporate world, and I'm sure that majority of motion graphers working in a real time or in a live event industry probably run into this quite a bit. We have a friend from Uruguay. That's amazing. That's great.
That is really far away.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So let's lay down some ground rules for how we're gonna conduct this stream. So I am sharing the assets and work files of this specific thing that we're gonna be building straight away, so that you guys have access to dissect it, if you please, from the get-go. There's assets to follow along, although I will be running quite fast because I'm conscious that we have just that much time. And there's a full build for Notch and full build for the skies. So we're gonna talk about all those things. So let's quickly recap what we have here and what we're gonna build. So we're gonna make 4 layers. So it's gonna be main look, which you see right here. Then we're gonna make a nominees layer, where we will have 6 persons nominated for whichever the category that we're gonna come up with. To mention that, Ryan has a handle on the CSV file or on the Google Sheet, where he can come up with a category and come up with a list of names and the winner. Now I propose to actually have a little bit of fun and perhaps come up with a award category and winners ourselves. I know Ryan has prepared a very interesting proposal for
I think we'll all enjoy voting for our winner. We'll definitely have a very good choice of awards to give out.
So to put it in short, Ryan will be conducting that in chat, so just please follow and come up with suggestions for a nominees and for a winner. So once that is going to be accomplished, we're gonna give a note to each other, to Ryan. He's gonna update the file, and I'm gonna download that as a CSV and swap out or put it in instead of the live text. And then we're gonna have a winner layer. So winner layer will be directly related to the same CSV file. As you see, we have a slot for a winner. And then we will build the last one, the transition, because we need some kind of a dynamic way to move from one scene to another in a media server. So yeah, that's more or less it. I hope you already started downloading files should you choose to follow or just dissect. And I'm gonna open a new blank file, and I think the first thing that I'm gonna do, I'm gonna change the aspect ratio. Usually we work in 16:9, but I think it's fun to break this a little bit and maybe make it 2 HD, like double HD in width. So 3840 in width and 1080 in height. There we go. That is good. I think first thing we can do is start with the text. It is afterwards an award, and we need some kind of typography. So under the assets, we have fonts, and there's 2 fonts available. I think I'm gonna choose something quite thick, so maybe Montserrat Black. That's fine. In fact, I could easily grab an alternative one as well, just in case. And to mention, we support Unicode, which is a great news for all people coming from all various countries. Let's say Scandinavians have umlauts, and there's a whole bunch of different characters in China and Japan and India and you name it. So all of those are available now because there is Unicode. So since we have a text node, now we're gonna choose a font that we just brought in, and let's type in some kind of a text. So for instance, awards. I'm gonna put on the grid, so I'm pressing Alt G. And as you see, it is now aligned to the left side. I actually would love this to be centered, so I'm choosing center. And I'm gonna fix this A. It doesn't have to be, or actually let's make it all capital. Awards, didn't type. Cool. It could be a little bit thicker, and we have extrude amount here, so I'm gonna take care of that straight away. Okay, that's good. We need some kind of a lighting condition. I think I'm gonna add voxel cone lighting. As you see, it came in hashed out red. That indicates that I need a couple of extra little steps to make it run. So for voxel cone to actually work, I need a bounding box. So I'm gonna turn that on, and I'm gonna enable the deferred rendering. Well, high dynamic range and anti-aliasing too for the good measure. Now notice what happens. I have a bounding box, and exactly where bounding box exists, this lighting takes place. So with the ERT, with the T, I'm gonna scale it a little bit wider so it covers my frame. I think I'm gonna straight away add a camera too, so I have a fixed shot, a nice view. So I'm hitting 0 and I'm gonna pan out awards. Well, there we go.
So fancy.
I know, we could easily stop here. This is already good. So now we have awards. We're gonna open the editable text in a moment, but I think we should build it up a little bit more. Now, very likely you're gonna have a 3D object for a logo of the company. Should you not have one, we figured that it would be nice to build something that would allow you to make a 3D object out of a 2D PNG still. So under the assets, there's logo proxies, and there's two. I'm quite a fan of this octopus, but I do have a little house as an alternate as well. So let's make a little logo that could be hanged right there. In fact, I'm gonna make the text a little bit smaller, and I'm gonna start with the clone to image. So let's add that in. Clone to image requires some kind of a video or image file that would be used as a basis for cloning. So I'm gonna go for logo 1. Again, that's this little octopus. And I am sure that Ryan is coming up with some kind of a category and some nominees by now. You should be working hard on this. Please and thank you.
Would you like us to announce our category immediately, really early on, or do you want to go a little bit further?
No, I actually want this to be a surprise. I'm not reading the chat, so just do that. It should be fun for me as well. So I'm gonna go for shape 3D as an output for this clone to image. And there we are. There we have our octopus. So what I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna hang it a little bit higher. Actually, I'm gonna pan out from camera and make sure that it's just above there. And you see, we are not in the voxel cone anymore. So not in a bounding box of voxel cone. So I'm just gonna make sure to make it bigger so we are always covering things with our lighting. It's rather too big, I think. So I could make it smaller, but maybe for now I'm just gonna leave it like this. In fact, I think it would be smart to have a null in between. Now, the reason why I'm adding this null, because should we add more parts to this little rig, then we have a little controller and we can offset positions of this logo setup. Right, so let's make some tweaks to this clone to image. We have brightness threshold. I'm gonna bump that up because if I was to move it down, just for a brief moment, I will do that. I'm gonna move it forward. Look what happens if I have it on 0. We still have the black spheres filled in too. So we want to increase the threshold so we would have a bit of a transparency, alpha, or, well, you name it. So it would be more 3D and it would have its own space. Cool, so we have that. I think it would be nice to make it dynamic. So I'm gonna add turbulence as an effector. So effector goes to the second input. And I want to turbulate on a scale. So -1, oh, that's a bit harsh. Maybe just a little bit, 0.07. That's fine. In fact, it could be way slower. That's good. My bounding box is fine. Yes, it is. We could add a little bit more of dynamic to this by adding a little particle system. So I'm gonna grab a particle root. I'm gonna maybe hang it here on the side. I'm gonna use the same null. Now I need an image emitter because again, I want to use the same logo for all these things. Now notice what happens when I connect image emitter. It just stays there hashed out red. That is because he's saying like, hey, I need some kind of a video to talk So let's give him a video. Now we could choose to use some kind of a renderer from particles. Just for the sample, I'm gonna add a simple one. Point renderer, for instance. As I start simulation, there it is. It's working. So my clone is offset in 3D space. In fact, I'm gonna match them up and I'm gonna move the whole null instead. That's why we have it in the first place. Cool. There are issues though. Image emitter needs threshold as well. I'm gonna bump it quite drastically up. Yep, bit better. And I want this to refer to luminance. And there it is, it's working. Now, I don't really want point renderer here. I actually want this to be in 3D. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna grab clone to particles. And I'm gonna connect it to the same null yet again. So for clone to particles to work, I need to give it a particle system. In this case, exactly what we just created. And a shape 3D. I'm just gonna copy the one that I already had. Oh, that's brutal, that's too big. Let's increase the numbers to like 1500. Yep, too big, too very much big. Let's make it smaller. Now it's better. Cool, so point render is not needed anymore. It is working. It looks horrid because it has no motion whatsoever. So I would love to give it a bit of velocity so it would be dragged backwards continuously. So let's just add velocity, and velocity has a direction. It is actually in a good direction. We want this to go backwards. We don't want these particles to live long, because you see we already exceed the bounding boxes of our voxel cone lighting. That is because they live so long. Let's be cruel, let's make it short lifespan for these ones. So let's put it to 1. Little bit better. Now they are too fast, so I'm gonna reduce the velocity speed. Now, since the work files are shared, and I'm gonna repeat that it's there, if you haven't had the chance to grab the work files, ping Ryan about it, he will share the link again. I am moving quite fast, but I just keep that in mind, that I'm keeping in mind the fact that you guys have those files to follow along, should you please to do that. Let's add a bit more motion to this, maybe curl noise, for instance. Good. I don't like the default, so I'm gonna bump it down on a simulation speed to 0.2, and size could be smaller, 0.2. This could be bigger, the amount. Let's set it to something like 30. No, it could be slower. Yeah, cool. So it's getting somewhere. It's closer to what I would actually like to see. Maybe this could be smaller. So I'll grab the shape 3D and make it smaller. All right. Yeah, we're getting somewhere. In fact, I can grab the whole null, reduce the scale, bring it a bit up. Yeah, so I think now we just need to frame it up a little bit. But before we move to that part, I think we can advance our lighting a tiniest bit. So in this case, we're using voxel cone. We can make it a little bit prettier by adding HDR lighting. So I have several options, 3 HDRs. And you can find quite a few of them for free in a little website called HDR Heaven. It's a very good place for resources. It's absolutely free of charge, and the amount of choices you have there is just great. And as you see, you can grab the 1K, 8K, 16K, you name it. Now, for most intent and purposes, I'd say 4K is probably quite enough. So since we have several HDRs now ready, I'm gonna type in environment map. I'm gonna bring it to the scene, connect it to the root, and I'm gonna give it some kind of a HDR image. Now, HDRs are just sort of unwrapped 360 view. I think I'm gonna stick around with this one just for now. So I'm gonna connect it to the environment map input for the image. And I want these two little systems to talk. So when I grab the output, I see that available inputs lights up. So in this case, there's a specific input environment map. Done. So this is becoming a little bit more interesting. In fact, let's push it a notch further. I'm gonna add a material, and I'm gonna tick on, well, at least Ryan is, I think that's nice. I'm gonna add a HDRI lighting on the material too. To be honest, I think I can use, at least for now, the same material on the 3D objects that we just created in the logo and actually on the text file as well. So text has two inputs for texture. That is because the first one is responsive for the front and the second one is responsible for the sides, and that's going to make sense more as we progress. So I'm not going to make many changes here in this material. I'm just going to tick on environment mapping, and there we go, a little bit more glittery, a little bit more awardish. That's great. We can bump up the specularity, for instance, reduce the light a little bit. There we are. I'm going to take out the grid and I'm going to add a very cheap, very nice little light for the background. It's called light scattering beam. Let's make it less intrusive, perhaps a little bit more bluish. I don't really want to see it, so I'm gonna bring it a little bit down and I'm gonna enable the depth test. Cool, so what do we do now? Again, this is a little bit too big. I'm gonna make it smaller. Simulating, I think velocity is too fast too. Let's reduce that a bit. Yeah, it's kind of okay. I think we can give this text a little bit more space. So I'm gonna bring it down. In fact, we could probably, if we are smart, we should put it under the same null too. So let's take out the positional values. The reason why I'm putting everything under the same null is that we could later on just copy the whole thing and position it at once. I think that's gonna be quite handy. All right, a bit bigger. Now here. Yep, that's good. Let's give a little circle around this logo. So shape 3D. Probably would be nice to clean up a little bit. So this is my clone to image. This is my particles. May they live here. And now I'm gonna make this shaped 3D. That's great. It came in as a sphere as a default. We want a torus. Our torus should be facing the z-axis. It should have a little bit bigger, smaller inner radius, and it should be bigger by itself. Now we have this very visible edge here, and that is because our subdivision is rather low, so it's set by default to 20 by 20. I'm gonna bump it up to 80 by 80. Much slicker. Let's give the same material for it. Cool. One last little thing we can add here to make this a little bit more exciting is yet another shape 3D. I'll just make it a bit bigger. There we go. Perhaps I can send it a little bit backwards, because why not? And now we can give it another material and make it see-through, so we can sort of fake glass, because we're just gonna have environment map reflected on it. And I think that's all that we need to make it that more interesting. Okay, material. Let's stick on environment mapping. Yep, it's taking place. And now in the alpha blend mode, let's go for alpha blended additive. And let's bump up the specularity. Yep, there it is. We could mess about a little bit later on with, let's say, rotation or position, or we can even put some post effects on the environment map to make it a little bit more abstract, but we can just come back to that in the moment. Cool, so this is a good step forward. We probably will come back and change a little bit the colors, so it's a bit more festive, maybe gold-ish. Let's add a couple of more things. I see Ryan smiling. Is there something fun going on in chat?
Oh, we've got Gloom909, who wants this to be the Hydro Awards, and I don't think I can argue against that suggestion.
What awards? I'm sorry?
The Hydro Awards. Are you not familiar with your Marvel movies?
I am. That's the villain, isn't it? That's the very villain. I did though expect. I did expect Notch Vader, Notch Trooper, Star Wars theme, but you know what? That sounds just better. Yeah.
The Hydra Award sounds a lot more fun. Who gets punched hardest by Captain America?
Fair enough. I leave you to it. That's great. So I think we are done with the sort of basic center setup. Now, the reason why we build all of this crazy with the logo is because you might get a logo from your customer or from your client, and it might be just black and white pass. And that's great. That's all you need to make a 3D setting. In fact, this could be smaller still. Well, actually, let's do that straight away. It's smart to do things as you progress, so you don't have to come back to it later. So 0.8 on both cloner and particles. Great. So all we have to do if we want to swap out the logo is literally just change it from the assets. Now, these are too big as well. I'm very nitty gritty when it comes to scales, and you probably know that by now. Anyways, cool. Let's address the background. One cloner that I haven't used yet, it's a random cloner. I think this will serve us very well for building the background. Now, as you may have noticed, the whole theme of this thing is spheres, and that's fine. We're just gonna stick with that. So again, I'm gonna grab a Shape3D. I'm gonna connect it to the random cloner. Random cloner gives us 50 clones. Let's be generous, make it 80. Let's check it out. Whoa, it's quite big. I think we can change the spread a little bit, maybe something like that. Now, do we have, yes, we have randomness selection here. That's great. So let's make it a bit more random. And I think we were too generous. Let's drop it to 60. That is halfway decent. Let's see. In fact, we don't really need many clones here in the front, so we can just push it a little bit back. Now, obviously, we have issues. Now, these clones might be in the way of actual logos. We're gonna address that very, very soon. I think I kind of like this. We will come back and tweak it. One thing that really gets my OCD is these little jagged edges. Again, that's the subdivision numbers. And if I was a smart person, I would first of all turn on tessellation. To be honest, I think that does the trick. So tessellation is like a cheaper way to add more geometry. Ryan has probably a better technical explanation for it, so I'll leave it to him.
Yeah, you subdivide the geometry depending on how close it is to the camera, and then using the different options, you can say how aggressive it's going to do that, or how much smoothing it applies as it does that.
So I just pulled in plane effector, and I'm going to apply it on a random cloner. The reason why I need a plane effector is because I want to give some space for the logo in the center. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to reduce the fall off a little bit. And I think I'm going to shape it like an egg, maybe like this, and yet smaller. Because I only want this fall off to be around the awards word. So if I then tick on uniform scale and make things smaller, all of a sudden I have a little controller that makes sure that nothing gets in the way of the actual logo, which is great. And we're going to expose with a parameter to use in media server and in WebGUI, because this text will be dynamic. So should you choose to type in something else, you should always have an option to sort of expand or to shrink it. Now, this is awfully boring because everything is super flat white. So we could add a color ramp, for instance, to add some color. We could choose to add some textures, but I propose that we instead open an option to project a video or a camera production or an image for that matter, so that it always would be dynamic. So we can do that by first combining the geometry, because obviously if I would apply the material now to this Shape3D, it would just go one by one, and I just want the material over all of it. So to achieve that, I'm gonna connect the combined geometry to the root. So I press Ctrl R, and Ctrl R is one of the handier shortcuts. So I'm gonna send this Shape3D to the combined geometry, and now I can apply a unified material on this combined geometry, because combined geometry just treats this whole cloner system as one mesh, which is great for us. So let's grab first let's spell correctly. Let's grab a material, let's pipe it into the appropriate input, which is the second one here. And let's find some kind of a texture or a video to use. So I think in this case, I'm just gonna grab a proxy video that I use for IMAX, which is some nice artists doing their thing, doing a performance. This is just great for us to have as a reference. So what I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna pipe it into the first input, color texture. And let's see what's going on. Nothing is going on. What am I missing here?
Have you hidden your Shape3Ds?
No, that's a good point. I should. 1-0.
Oh, man.
Ryan 10. I'm pleased to say that you surprised me in a good way. Anyways, as you see now, we are getting somewhere, but it doesn't look anywhere close to nice. So now we're gonna grab a magic node called mapping. Mapping node has an input in a material, and that's the last one here. So it's literally just beneath the first one. So now we have an option on how should these be these videos be mapped on the shapes. I think I'm gonna go for the equirectangular, and I think I'm gonna choose world normals, for instance. So cool. So as you see now, we have sort of like a cheap, fun way of putting up a texture.
Do you think you could break this up into different regions with the region node?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna be on that in a moment. Let's see if we can turn this around a little bit. Would that make a difference? Because we have a little seam there, but well, we can disregard it for now.
Go to the mapping node and enable generate per pixel. Might be that.
Yep, let's do that. Oh, it's thinking.
Yeah, it does take a second to think.
Just to point it out, I was anticipating that things can go wrong. I have a thing prepared for a things go wrong scenario. That would be exactly this. I duly hope that I will not have to use it. Yeah, it's a bit better. It's a little bit better. Now, I just don't like the way it's placed. Like in the back, there's two shaped 3Ds sort of hitting each other. That's not really cool. So I think I can just go for another randomization. Yep, there's a seed option.
Ooh, that was good.
Which one? This one?
Like one there was right in the middle. There. No, below.
This? 6?
Oh, definitely not that.
This?
There's one where there. No, there.
Okay.
Quite nice. Oh, it's got and it's back. I like that.
Yeah, let's keep it with this. I think it's just dragged out to the Z space a little bit too much though, so we can fix that a little bit. Spread Z a little bit less, please and thank you. Yes, indeed. Forward. Let's make the plane a little bit bigger. Bam, bam, bam. Oh, we have this big thing in the front. There we go. Yeah, we're gonna change up some things with the texture. Well, yeah, it's kind of cool here and there, but we'll probably come back to the mapping node as we progress. How about local normals? No.
Or better.
World looked better, I think.
Yeah.
So another
Not
thing.
too different.
Matter of taste, I guess. And of course, we could flip it on the X though, and flip it on the Y. That kind of makes more sense, I suppose. So, anyways, the whole reason for this exercise is that we could swap it out dynamically to whatever we choose. So again, it could be camera production, it could be a video file. Basically, this makes things sort of dynamic and different for every and all use case. I'm gonna come back to a video because it's just fun when it's moving around. I think I'm gonna add some subdivisions on this shape 3D because it would be nice to have it a little bit more pronounced. You know what? I can afford it because I'm running quite a decent graphics card. Yay! Okay, cool. I think we can carry on adding a little bit of elements here. So on the camera, I'm gonna apply directional blur. Let's add that. Or actually no, radial blur. So it's a bit harsh. Let's drop the intensity, or actually let's just go through different blending modes that we have available for us. Maybe light is nicer.
Turn down the scale as well, yeah.
Yeah, we are getting somewhere now. That's much nicer. So the cool thing about a radial blur is that we can rig in a little null, and that null will correspond with the positional values. So let's see, it's mask affected transform controller. Yes, indeed. So now as I move this little null, we can change its position. So that's another little neat object or neat parameter that we can open for media server use. Okay, let's see if we're missing something in... Okay, we had 2 lines of text there. Of course. Let's do that. So let's come back to our setting and let's add a subtitle here. So I probably can just copy this text node, connect it to the null, bring it a bit down, make it smaller, and now a little bit up. What should we write here, Ryan?
Oh, Hydra 2019, I guess.
No, you're right, not Shella. That's a very good point. I'll give this option for you to change later.
Sure, let's go for that.
Not Shella 2019. Right, let's make it smaller. Oh, I just typed in Y. The reason why I typed in Y because I was pressing Y looking for a unified scale shortcut. There we are. So we can apply the same material here too. Bam, bam. This could be a little bit more golden, so let's just maybe add a bit of goldish thing. Why not?
Now it's fancy.
Yeah, we're getting there. We're definitely getting there. Another thing that would probably make this pop is a little bit of an area light, sort of shining as a plate in between the text. Just gonna go ahead and grab that because why not? Because who is stopping me?
It should be me, really.
Yeah, I know. This was just, yeah, you have no power here.
Yeah.
Okay, it's helping. It's definitely helping. I could easily just make it bigger too. It's kind of nice. Let's make it.
It's affecting our sphere too much.
And that's great. That's actually a very good thing that is happening. So I can actually point out a neat little trick or a handy tip. If you hover over the inputs of the area light, you will see that there is one called exclude nodes. Well, let's just exclude this very node. Done. Much better. It is a bit harsh though. So either we reduce the brightness of the area light or we reduce a little bit the radial blur. We can even just change the positions as we have a controller now. Oh, this is glorious, Ryan. This is great. Not bragging at all.
A little bit bragging.
Shh. Okay. No, not a good choice. Better yet, let's reposition the logo instead of repositioning all things. So smaller, a little bit more to the front because now it's intersecting there. This is glorious. This is great.
Perfect. Okay,
one more node for the post-production that we're gonna add is going to be film grading. Now, film grading is a very, very nice default node that we have. Although I have to say that chromatic amount is a bit too high in the default. And I don't want that blur, but I do want a little bit of noise because, well, why not? All right, cool. If anything, we could add a little bit of motion on those spheres. So let's say turbulence. Yep. What should it be turbulating? Yeah, up and down. That's quite fine. It's a bit too fast.
Slow at the moment.
No, I think it's... Yeah.
That's what I meant.
So this is much nicer. We do have this one hitting our setup a little bit. So, oh, you, mister, you have to move out. And so you did. In fact, I'm going to make it bigger.
If you move the plane effector below the turbulence, then they'll be affected in the right order.
I really dislike when you're right, but when you are. Credit is due where credit is due. Another thing that actually the text is super static, so I think that is what is throwing me off. Like I really don't like the fact that it's just standing there. It should be doing something as well. So let's be consistent. Let's add some turbulence to it. So if you notice, first two inputs is dedicated for effectors and the second one for text string. So in this case, we want to use the first one and we're gonna use the turbulence effector from cloning. Ah, isn't that nice? We can actually turbulate text with effectors. That's good. Too fast, slow down, much better. It could have a little bit more of extrusion. So we could either add that in the nodes or we can add a another type of thing, like a deformer, like maybe sign deformer, for instance. Or let's see, maybe something else. Taper. I think taper is a better one. Ryan is looking very suspiciously like, what on earth is he doing here?
It doesn't quite make sense yet. I don't see where you're going.
Do you see it now?
It's gone further.
I'm not saying that that's mandatory. I'm just saying that that's an option, and we're here all about the options. In fact, let's just add a bit of more extrusion as well. So now we're a bit more dynamic. Turbulence is still a bit too fast. Okay, so this is all right. Maybe we should change the null's position. I moved off the microphone a little bit too far. I hope you can still hear me.
I can still hear you.
Oh, that's good. You know what? I think I'm going to stop tinkering. I'm going to leave it at that because we have still so much to cover. So we have the basics now. So I would propose that we open some parameters for media server and for WebGUI use, because when we're building the second layer now, we're going to copy out things so we don't have to build it twice. And if we copy out a parameter that is already exposed, we will be prompted with a dialog saying, do you want to make this unique or not? And we're going to say, no, keep it the same, so that once I've changed the text in this one, it would change the text in another layer as well. So I'm going to go for project settings and I'm going to enable WebGUI. Right, done. So now I'm going to type in localhost 8910, and mind you that 8910 comes from the port number. Now I'm using localhost, but if you're addressing a machine to another machine, you can use IP. I probably would give Ryan my IP, but I might regret that later, so it's not going to happen.
You would regret that later.
I would regret that later. Now, since I have a sample running in the background, I see now I have all these things already pre-exposed for me. So that is something we can fix by just closing a sample file. Right, let's open this one. There, we have a WebGUI ready. There is literally nothing exposed. Let's expose things one by one. I think we will want to alter the text, so I'm going to expose that property, and we will want to alter the subtitle too. Let's expose that as well. If I go back to my WebGUI, I see that I have option to do that now. So instead of words, let's write stream update. Yay, stream. I think we will want to change the image that we're using for this background. So in this case, this video loader. So I'm going to expose that, and I'm going to call this background. Okay, back to the GUI. And there we have all the assets that we have in resources now available. So if I start the playback, oh no. Oh yes, all is good. Oh, okay.
You were just very excited there.
Yep, indeed. So now I can just skip through and choose whichever the one I actually like. That's cool. It's gonna come handy in the media server. I'm gonna just come back to the same one that I had. So now we exposed the text background. We should expose the logo as well. And our logo is right here, this little fella. So let's give it a name as well. Logo. Okay, WebGUI, refresh. And of course, he forgot what was set, so let's just remind him. We want in the logo part, logo 1, and in the video loader background, we want this file here. So should it be a house logo? Should it be an octopus? House, octopus? Now we have a choice, and we can always swap that out in the media server as well. Cool. This is more or less done. Now it's time to add another layer. Let's do that. Since I'm copying everything, I'm just going to replace the positions. I'm just going to copy the whole layer instead of copying parts of it. So Control-C, Control-V. No, not unique. Let's rename it. I'm going to hit F5. I'm going to call it Nominees. Greatness. Right, let's make some changes here. So in this case, I think this whole thing could be smaller. We just want it in a bottom There, could be a bit closer, smaller. Stay there. I'm gonna move this background a little bit back so we have more space to do things like this, for instance. That's good. This area light, since we used it for logo, we might as well just bring it down, make it smaller too. And we can just leave it at that for now. So now we will start to do things necessary for us to grab a CSV file, the very one that you guys were coming up with. I left this hanging, sorry for that. Let's build a little system where we have several camera productions or several choices. It could be pictures of people, it could be live camera feeds, and we're gonna add names around it. So let's build a little system for ourselves there. I'm gonna use everything piped from camera because I want to offset everything flat and back. So I'm adding a null. I'm gonna connect a shape 3D to this null. Very good. So now I'm just gonna offset it in the Z space. Okay, good. Something like that, for instance. This is something that will be just an outline. So I think I can change this to a ring, or actually no, a torus. Should be on a Z. Should have smaller inner radius. More subdivisions, 80 by 80, because why not? And now, since I offsetted the whole null, I'm just gonna distribute things left and right. But before I do that, I think I'm gonna finish up making this one initial nominee. So I think I need an image plane. So that too should be connected, let's say, to a null. Great, it came in as a square, as expected. I think I need some kind of a proxy, so I'm gonna go for assets. Camera proxies, there's a whole 6 of them. Cool, we'll grab the first one. Right, it came in as a square, that's okay. Let's make it into a 16 by 9er. Now we can do that by typing 16 divided by 9. That's good. For now, maybe the post effects could be just taken off. Yep, there we go. So it is a 16 by 9er, but we don't see the frame anymore, and we can use key and fill for that. So we can build this with a gradient. So gradient, and gradient goes to the second input of image plane, and as you see, it already takes effect. Now by default, gradient is set to linear, so I'm going to change it to radial, give it a lot more inner, and I think I'm going to shape it up a little bit manually. There we go. So this is a little bit better. Nice. You could probably use the same material again, because why not? It's a bit sad. I'm gonna make a new one. Okay, so now we want to make this a little bit more exciting. I think I want a shape 3D, and I want the shape 3D to follow in a circular pattern around this this shape. So let's make it smaller. In fact, we're gonna need another null, because now we need to have a little gimbal or a pivot point. So from this null to that null to shape 3D. And now I can offset this shape 3D a little bit higher up. I can make it a little bit smaller. So now if I grab this one and I start turning this, I have a little gimbal, a little pivot. So I will build this little turning thingy around all of the nominees just to build a bit of this drama. So for that, I can use continuous modifier. Let's set it up. Let's set it on 0 as a starting point. It's moving really slow. Let's make it faster, and let's make sure that it goes the other way. So I'm gonna set it to subtract for the opposite operation. Okay, cool. This is getting there. In fact, I think it's quite hard to work, so I'm gonna just offset it a little bit to the side. There. So what I want to do now, I want to add an option to have a text around it, stating the name and surname of this very person. Let's see if I can make this plane even bigger still. Actually, I can just increase the inner fall off, and that will fix our issues. Yep, there we go. Goody goody. Now it's time for the text. So geometry text to the main null, because this is our controller for offsetting the positions. I see that there's some bleed here. My gradient could be nicer. There we go. In fact, maybe this shape could be thicker, because why not? So, text node. Of course, we need some kind of a font, so I'm just gonna go with this one for now. We have two options there. And this is where the fun part starts. So obviously we could type in some kind of a name and surname, but instead of that, we already sent a little Google sheet to our customer saying like, hey, fill in the names and surnames, fill in the winner. We're gonna use that dynamically. If you need to change it, just change it. It's all fine. So I'm gonna go ahead and find it.
So here,
why is my name there?
No, your name isn't there. It's there twice.
Okay.
It's there twice. So this is our awards, the Hydra Award for who should be hit hardest by Captain America. I think we have a lot of people who. Yeah,
carry on.
We have if we're going to offer somebody to be hit by Captain America, I think it's only fair that it's one of us. So.
Okay.
The quicker we vote, the quicker we can move on from this bit.
Fair enough. Okay, well, let's grab this thing in the current state. Obviously, Ryan can make alterations to it as we go. All we'll have to do is just re-download the files. I'm going to go for File, Download As, comma separated values, CSV. Great. Open with? No, I don't need to open. I just need to save it. So it's saved. I'm gonna drag it and drop it on a desktop. That's exactly what I did now. So if I now hit import resource, or I can just drag it in. There we go. So I just did that. I dragged in the award list CSV sheet. If I open it, you'll just see that there's actually names that Ryan typed in. So the thing we are interested here in is the order. As you see, every single point has a number. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, full forward, and so forward. So look what happens if I grab a CSV table entry as text. I can grab that from the dropdown, and I can pipe it into the text node. So that's the second input. Aha, Hydra Awards. We see, Hydra Awards. The reason why we see Hydra Awards as a first text is because it's the first point. Now, if I go back to the CSV table entry and I change the index to 2, then it's Ryan, then it's Bent, then it's Matt Notchvader, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to leave it at the Hydra Award. And I think I'm going to make sure that the justification is not in the left, but in center. Good. I think I'm gonna unhook it from the null because I just realized that we don't have the category yet. So I'm just gonna connect it to the root instead. Or actually we can connect it to the camera so that everything is in the same place. So let's just offset it in a Z space so we could see it. Yep. Now I'm happy. So obviously we could push it a little bit further, add the material here, some turbulence, displacement. Yep. Gonna do all that, but let's leave it at this and let's work a little bit more on a person. Let's make it smaller and let's take another text node, connect it to the null. Let's give it a font and let's copy the CSV table entry. Let's pipe it in. In this case, I want this to be radial. So in the text node, there's an option for circular. Yep, do that please. And there it is. It was super big. So if I pan out, you will see that it's all the way there. It's like huge. We don't need that big thing. So I'm making it smaller still. I'm just going to increase the size so we see that the words coming in. Great. Now let's see what digit is affiliated with our first nominee, which happens to be a person sharing my name, which is great. Let's set 2 here, or actually 1. Yeah, that's another thing to mention. The way this is being referred to, Notch sees a 0 as a value too. So instead of 1 is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so forth and so forward. In this case, this file is naming things from 1, so that's just something to keep in mind, which is fine. Okay, so now we have our first nominee. Let's maybe make it still smaller. I would appreciate if all the nominees had surnames too, or some kind of a nicknames. That would just make it a little bit thicker, a little bit nicer, because now it's quite empty. Right, cool. To be honest, I'd like this to spin too, so what can I do? Well, I probably can add a null and make the very same type of a gimbal as I did with the sphere. So I'm just gonna go ahead and do that. Ding, ding, done. And if I turn this, now I have a little gimbal. Hurrah! Copy of the continuous modifier, bumping it to the rotation bank. I probably will offset it, or maybe I can give it a bit of a different speed, let's say 10. So it just works a little bit differently one from the other. And in fact, it should be offset a little bit further so it doesn't intersect. Like this sphere shouldn't intersect with the name. Cool. In fact, this could go the other way. Because why not? All right, so this is more or less done with the first nominee. I think one thing still missing is a material. So let's fix that. Let's add material and let's just bump it to the every single possible input here. So this shape 3D, yes please. This shape 3D, absolutely. How about text? Yes, yes of course. And let's give it a bit of color. So this is all right, but it's very flat. But if we would go for a color ramp, or actually color, mind you, British color, if we would go for the color ramp deformer, this would become a little bit more dynamic because we could set a little bit of a fractal noise, which sort of has a bit of shimmer here and there. Let's do that. Let's add the shimmer on the text. Let's add that shimmer on the shape 3Ds as well. Bam, bam. So if I grab now the very ramp, pipe it to the first input, and say the first one is this, the second one is that, I already see that it's working. Awesome. What I do want though is that it wouldn't set the colors by texture coordinates U, you should set it by fractal noise. All right, it's there. Maybe the gain could be smaller. So now it's a little bit more dynamic. Now it's much nicer. In fact, we can do the very same thing with the main title too. So I'm just gonna maybe move it here. What do you think, Ryan? How nice is that? Compliment.
A little cycle.
Compliment needed right here, please and thank you. Let's apply the same material on this one too. And let's add a bit more bling by enabling environment map. Now we have a bit of shimmer. Now that's much nicer. In fact, this could be a little bit more extruded. You could be on a bit of an angle because it's all about that drama. We could add the same turbulence and the same taper. I think it was taper. Yes, it was, as we did in the previous layer. So let's copy those, bring it back, paste it. Let's connect taper as an output. Yep, it's there. Let's see if it's working. It is working. Awesome. Now let's add turbulence effector. We're turbulating. Great. Now notice what happens. This is good to point out, by the way. So I'm just gonna find myself in a timeline. I got lost in time. Check out. Now, check this out. Now, I'm in a second 28 of 30. Our composition is 30 seconds. Now, look what happens when we hit the 30 mark. Bam! Thing starts to jump. And that is because our effector is locked to the time code. I'm going to set it to running loopable. So all of a sudden, that will be just way smoother. And in fact, before we export this all for media server use, we will go through all of these and make sure that if there's an animation, we have it running smoothly. Now this node right here, could you please be positioned like this, and thank you. Yes, you look much better now. Good node. All right, I'm talking a lot. I think I'm gonna carry on doing that. So now we have.
Do you want to get yourself a little bit of water? Have a little breather.
Do I sound so cranky now?
It's an onslaught, Armin. It's an onslaught.
Onslaught. Fine. Okay. No, I'm still good. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to make this all spaghetti of nodes a little bit tidier, and I'm going to start copying and spreading out all our nominees, of which there's 6. So let's do that. We have a material. Let's put it a bit aside. This is our main null, the main controller. Then we have this null for rotation of the extra elements. Then this one is for the rotation of the text. Let's just make sure that everything is lined up nicely. This color ramp could be in the bottom. Right, this is nice. This can stay here. There was a request to use region. I remember that before we're gonna finish this off. I'm gonna add region nodes. They are super handy. While I'm doing this arduous manual job, Ryan can explain why is it good to use regions and be sort of tidying your node graph.
So the region node, as Armin will, I assume, demo in a bit, it draws a large colored block that you can place on your node graph, which means that rather than seeing an intense spaghetti junction of node lines, you can visually break it up into separate pieces and separate parts. So yeah, if you're doing something large and complicated, using region nodes or group nodes to separate things out into smaller chunks can help you a lot when trying to figure out what's going on and just how to either adapt to new changes that you want to make or new things that you want to do.
Okay, good. I think I'm done. This looks a little bit better. So I moved away things that I will connect to all existing copies, which is in this case color ramp, and I moved away the actual name of the award. And this is something that we're going to duplicate time and time again now. So as Ryan explained what's region, this is probably a good time to use a region node. So region, let's drag it in. Let's place it, for instance, here. Let's give it a name, nominee 1. All right, awesome. Let's copy all of this fancy shebang. Let's move it to the side. Let's connect this null to the camera. Cool. Now we can grab this very null and just offset it. Now we have 2 Armins. Yay.
For the price of 1.
You always have to ruin my moments, always. Okay, I'm gonna make those smaller because we have 6 to consider. Cool, I'm quite okay to keep this one here, and I'm just gonna make some alterations for this one here on the other side. So obviously I want to do the same thing with the color ramp. So I'm gonna attach the very same color ramp. We don't need to duplicate those. We can use the very same one. Should we need to change the color, for instance, it's better to change it once than 6, 7, 10 times, you name it. Okay, cool. That is attached now. It's lovely. What we should do now, we should make sure that we have another signal. So in this case, let's swap it to signal 2. And we should have another digit on the CSV. So in this case, 2. So the second nominee in this case is Ryan. Cool. We're going to repeat this procedure time and time. So till we get all 6 in. So let's just rename this to 2 as well. I'm gonna copy this, paste it there. Now, a good practice to have is being tidy. So we do know that the first and the second one is fixed up. Nominee 1, 2, this should be 3. Let's name it 3. Let's add another number to the CSV. So 3 here, there's bent. And let's change to the third signal. Done. Bent has very nice cheeks. Good for bent. So let's offset it here too. So if the last CSV digit was 3, this one will be 4. 4 it is. Let's swap the signal to 1, 2, 3, 4. Matt obviously is a little bit upset. What's going on here? Did I offset it in 3D space somehow? Why is it not aligning nicely?
Just offset it.
I think maybe the radius is off here. That's why. Yeah, much nicer, much nicer. And of course, we have to be aware of the spacing and all of that. So we will probably come back to these kind of settings as we progress. I'm trying to be a little bit fast here, and I know the fact that you already have these files available for you. Ryan can link it in chat if you have joined us just recently and you don't have the work files. Please and thank you, Ryan.
Done.
Good. 4. So this one is then 5. Very good. I see a change. So this then is the, well, Luke has nice hair as well. That's good for Luke. 6, I presume. Armin twice. Did that just came in, this one? Yes, it did. Yep, that was the same issue. I think I have offsetted all the text a little bit, so that's my mistake. I should probably just even flush it out all the way. That's okay. See this one? Yeah, that one has an issue. That one has an issue. Now it's much better. Good, good, good. Where did we finish? Yep, that was the 6th. Did I change the signal? No, I didn't. It should be 6. Now I have a nice
Of course,
gap.
you get the coolest one.
Of course.
That backwards hat.
Backwards hat. Now, I don't really like the spacing, but I think I'm just gonna leave it for now because we just have to progress. Let's bring it a bit lower. Make it smaller, and I think we can bump up this background a little bit. How about it being a bit higher and wider? And let's build some excitement here. Let's add some kind of a particle system in the back. So it's just sort of existing. So root, primitive emitter. Very good. This primitive emitter could be a plane, for instance, and it could be quite a wide plane. And this plane could live in the very top of things. Yeah, let's just keep it there. A little bit higher, for instance. Yeah, we don't see it, that's fine. Let's add a point render just so we see what's going on with our particles. And now let's give it some kind of a motion. So I see now that the particles are being born. Let's add some velocity so they would go down. So there we have velocity. Velocity is pointing to the depth of z. We want this to go to the bottom of y. Let's see. Oh, there we are. Okay. Yep. Not too shabby. Perhaps some curl noise. So it's a little bit more random. Yep. Smaller speed, smaller noise size. I'll start with 0.2 by 0.2 and amount. Let's make it bigger, like 30 for instance. Velocity is really, really hard. Let's reduce that. A bit more maybe. All right, cool. And of course we don't want to see points. We want to see 3D objects. So I'm gonna go for clone to particles. I'm gonna connect it to the root, give this particle system to work with. I'm gonna grab shape 3D. Now, initial number of particles is 5, so it's really low. I think I'm gonna bump it to 1500. They are rather big, so I have two options. Either I make it smaller in the shape 3D or in a very clone to particles node. I think it's better to do it in the node. I want some size randomness. That's fairly decent. They probably could live a little bit longer, so they reach a lower level as they fall down. So maybe in the lifespan, I will give it 10 seconds. We are measuring the lifespan in seconds. Well, okay, velocity could be faster. Oof, that's intrusive. That is way too big and way too many. Smaller. Perhaps the whole primitive emitter could be a little bit behind the text. That would probably make sense. Ryan, would you agree?
Yeah.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you,
Don't
Ryan.
want things to conflict too much.
Exactly. And in this case, we don't need point render anymore. You know what? They live too long. Let's be cruel. Let's set it to like 7 seconds, for instance. It could curl a little bit more, I think, as well. Yep, velocity. Don't need that fast. Speed could be slower too.
So maybe a lot of these particles aren't even making it into the shot. If you think about the movement.
Could be. So we can drop the whole primitive emitter a tiniest bit lower. Whoa, look at that now. Let's drag it a little bit backwards so it doesn't intervene. That's all right, that's nice. Let's just double check the size of our bounding box. Now we have more things happening in width, so I'm just gonna make it a bit wider so it covers a little bit more to the depth. All right, let's make it pretty as well. Let's add a material. I didn't rename the region, so I'm gonna come back for that. So material, environment map, a little bit more of it, I guess. Maybe a bit reduced, yet a color. Oh, that was a journey, but we are definitely getting somewhere. I'm not saying this is accomplished, but this is starting to look like something. Maybe some emissiveness too, because why not? It is intervening with names, so it should be a tiniest bit backwards still. Curl noise has a radius, so if anything, I could just pull this whole curl noise a little bit back. There we go. So it wouldn't just touch on the text nodes. Obviously, people who come to awards, they really are fond of the designs that look amazing and all that, but all they care is the nominees and is the winners. So let's make sure that they can read their names or their colleague names well.
We could also use render layers to put them on a different layer so it never conflicts. Or you could even just put collision meshes so that they are never able to get in front.
Yeah, that's absolutely a good point. In fact, we could add a kill box just for a sake of adding it, just to show you guys how it works. So kill box is just a box that sort of says, hey, if I'm here, you shall not pass. There we go. So it's not needed, but I think it's handy to know. Okay, little by little, it's definitely getting somewhere. This could be higher up. Go up, you mister. Now, this ramp, the colors, I'm just not happy with it. A little bit brighter, a little bit closer to the exact thing. Yeah, this is better. This is a little bit better. And I want this in world space. And this yellow could be darker. Okay, that's better. Let's bring back the post effects. Again, glorious, it's shining. That's all that counts, that's all that's mattered. Okay, cool. I think it's a little bit too much intensity on this node right here. We can drop it. We could make something more. I think I had something more in this layer here, didn't I? There was a sphere around the name of the category, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That's what's missing. That's exactly what's missing. So I'm gonna invest 5 minutes more. And I'm just gonna make that happen. So this could be smaller, and obviously the logo could be smaller. So the whole null here is to be affected. Please go down. And in the material, I'm gonna make it a little bit more color coherent. This null could be placed somewhere else, maybe here. Yep. Again, I'm a fan of tinkering, so please and thank you for understanding this. Yeah, okay. And I think area light is doing a lot for us here. It is. It's all depending on where do we place it. Be like this. Yeah. In fact, we could give 2 textures for the Hydra awards. Now you see the back and the front is the same. So if I just unhook it from the back and give something else, for instance, another material. Yep, and I'll just make it darker. Ah, popping up much better, doesn't it? Isn't it? Doesn't it? Isn't it? Better. Better is better.
Better is always better.
Yep. Okay, cool. This is getting somewhere. Although, again, I'm not super satisfied with this becoming orange. We don't need orange. We need goldish. Right, so there was one thing missing, which was the sphere. Shape 3D it is. So let's add that in. Let's pull it on the Z. Let's make it into torus. Torus should be on the Z axis. Inner radius should be smaller. The whole thing should be bigger. Be that big. Or actually, no, this big. Bit up. And then this big. And then smoother, so 90 by 90. I guess this text should actually fit in more or less. Yeah, like that.
That's a hell of a lot of subdivisions, Armin.
You think I'm too generous? Is that what you're saying?
I'm thinking 980 is quite a lot.
Did I do 900? Okay.
Yeah.
I was anticipating 90. I stand corrected. Thank you very much, colleague Ryan.
You're more than welcome, colleague Armin.
There, look at that. Now it's becoming something or a thing, doesn't it?
It's certainly beginning to look that way. I could definitely describe that as a thing.
I think I'm going to leave it at this, again, since we have a couple of more things to cover. But just to round things off, we do have a little system of 6 nominees, and let's see if we can update the files. I'm going to go ahead and see. Oh, yeah, there we go. There's new names. Download as, comma separated values. Yes, please. Save. Okay. There's my downloads. Which one is the new one then?
That's the new one.
That's the new one. Replace. Why not? And replace. Okay. Bam.
It looks like you have an offset one of them.
What do you mean offset one of them?
Number 1.
Yep. You mean in space, like?
Yeah, the text isn't offset. It's the ring. Look.
Yeah. We need to. Oh, yeah, that's true. Where are you? Where are you, little fella? You are this one, and you are this one, and this one. So obviously, huh? Let's just.
I said got in one.
I think they all have space. There could be more space here, though. That's for sure. So I guess this fella right here is the one. Yep. It could go a little bit further here. Let's make the particles darker.
Armin, can you say hello to Living Productions? Hello.
Hello.
Living Productions.
Hello, Living Productions. Good to have you here. Thank you for coming in. It's awfully nice to see that there's a lot going on in this chat. That's awesome. Nice. Okay, so we have this now. The last thing we need, obviously we can come back and tweak things to make it look prettier, and I'm sure we will. But the last thing we now miss is the winner. Do we already have a winner, Ryan?
I certainly think I can elect a winner.
So would you care to elect a winner while I'm doing a copy of this nominees layer? And I'm pasting it and I'm saying no, not unique at all. And I'm renaming this to a winner. So I'm hitting F5. Winner. Right, so to be honest, I'm just gonna delete all of this fancy work we did. We don't need that great many of these things. We just need one left there. And we're gonna reposition it and we're gonna offset the CSV. So in this case, I think even the logo part is not needed anymore. So I'm just gonna grab all of this, delete it. I'm gonna take this text file, which is stating our award name. I'm gonna pull it down, or not the award, but the category. And I'm gonna, don't know, I'm just gonna hide this for now, I think. And I'm gonna put the Mr. Winner in the center. I'm gonna make the Mr. Winner bigger. I bet that's your cat trying to leave the room.
It's a cat problem. Oh,
we have major cat issues.
Oh, poor cat. All right, come on.
Let's make the scale here bigger. So
probably get viral on Twitter.
Yep, let's scale it like this, then we retain the positional values. In fact, we can. I expect a lot of mockery in the chat about Ryan's cat, to be honest.
Please. You know, I should have brought her out for everyone to see.
Please deliver on this. There are people who are watching. There are people who are watching this. Please deliver on mocking Ryan for cat issues.
The cat is unmockable.
Okay, so let's give more excitement out to the back. Let's curl it a bit more. Let's give more velocity. Let's make it fun. Actually, let's bring back the point and let's increase the numbers here. So instead of 2000, maybe 32,000. Primitive emitter, 30,000. I just made 3,000, didn't I? Cool. And if anything, this point render now is just, if I just zoom in, you'll see that these points are square, super boring. We could bring in a sprite that we build ourselves in, say, Photoshop, or we can just make it from generator. So gradient, and by default gradient is linear. Let's change it to radial. Let's make it like this. Let's reduce the digits. We really don't need this in a high resolution. Oh, look at that. Look at that. It's a sphere. Greatness. Let's make the particles bigger. Bigger is better sometimes. Let's set some randomness for the size. Let's make it additive. And we had this ramp that we built. So if anything, primitive emitter has an input for the color ramp. Let's attach it. So I'm using the very same color ramp that we used for the awards in the previous, for the nominees in the previous layer. So I just want to make one change. I don't want this to work with the color selection mode input color. I want this to go for the emission time. So it changes color throughout the time. So if I hit 0 now, yep, there we go. There, it's a little bit more festive. In fact, maybe the alpha could be smaller. Yeah, something like that. And we can make it even fancier by adding a vortex in the center, because wouldn't it be nice if it starts to spin round and round when it's here in the center, for instance. Now that's obviously really harsh.
Maybe pull in the radius so it only gets effective when it gets a little bit closer.
Yeah, not a bad idea at all. Yeah, look at that. We do have a winner.
Yeah, we can pull the strength a bit more.
You mean velocity?
Yeah, pull the velocity up a bit more.
Yeah, there we go.
There we can see it going.
It's happening, it's happening. Ah, so, who won? Bent anti-film grain.
Anti-film grain.
Why no grain? Nice. Why no grain? It's fun, it's good.
It's because it's used too much. We've got to progress. We've got to come up with new ideas.
There are rule standards and things established being nice for a reason, because they're nice. Oh, it's not that page that I need. So file, download as, comma separated values, save the file, okay. And we established that the first one is the real one. So drop it on the desktop, replace, yes, thank you, awards, replace this, okay. Did it work? Did we get stuck? Replace, let's do it again. Yeah, I guess it did. No, it didn't. Did I not copy the CSV file? Let's do this again. So file, download as, comma separated CSV. Okay. So this is the one, isn't it? I have to say I'm not a big fan of Firefox. Yep, now it's the correct one. Good. Goody. Let's grab it, replace. Give me this one. Okay.
Have you changed the text itself to reflect to?
Ryan, you are a star today.
I'm like 6-0 today.
You are well on. That's so true. So in this case, it says 9. Since we are regarding this as a 0, let's see if it's 10 or 8. That should be. Yep, it says Bent, and he is the winner. Yes, good for Bent. Let's make Bent smaller so it doesn't intervene with the rest of the text. In fact, let's make Bent brighter. Let's give him a material, and let's reattach it to these nodes instead. I'm very pleased for Bent, actually. He should be happy.
Not many people get to be punched by Captain America. It's a real privilege.
Punched by, did I hear right? Punched by Captain America. Okay, that's, I take it back though. Yeah, let's make it shiny, like it's super emissive. Yep. I think if anything, these particles could be darker. We could probably work more and more on that. And I think I kind of got it to a decent place in the sample file that is sent out. I think I just leave it at something like that. Well, you know what? A fast fix would be to put a plate behind him. Wouldn't you agree, Ryan?
Actually, I think you could just do a 3D object outline. Just outline around it with black.
So I think we're more or less on the same page with that. So shape 3D. How about a circle, which is facing the z-axis?
Flip the normals.
Or I just can flip it like that. I can probably just move it a little bit back, make it a tad bigger. Move whole rig a little bit lower. And I would presume we would benefit of more subdivisions. So maybe 50, for instance. And we could give it a color of sorts. So material. Let's enable the environment mapping just for kicks. Darker and bluer. Hydra now is not really nicely placed. We can fix that. Well, there we go. It's more or less finished. I think we can build a transitional layer. I think it's worthy to do that. And we are more or less done. Transition. Done. It's gonna be fast, this one. Okay, we need a particle root. This is more or less the same thing we did for the background. We need a primitive emitter. We need a camera. I just want to be sure that we place it nicely, so I straight away get the camera. Can put on the grid so we see better what's going on. So yep, I panned it out a little bit. This is the primitive emitter. It could be set to a plane just like previously. It could be wider. You could have point renderer. There are fun things happening in the chat. Would you care to introduce me to what's going on there?
I think Ben has gone full Hydra and I'm not entirely sure what we do about that.
What do you mean? Are we fired by now, or what's going on?
No, not yet.
Okay, that's good. There's plenty of time for that.
Hired by an even more evil organization.
I always wanted to work for an evil corporation. It would be so fun, man. Like, I'm such a fan of... Imagine us being employees of Umbrella. It's great. It's fun. Right, so I'm adding a velocity because I want these particles to go down. Yep, that's happening. That's good for me. Okay, it's a little bit of curl, I guess, would never hurt to make this a bit more dynamic. So curl, let's just randomly increase, decrease to see what's going on. Yep, smaller, smaller, bit bigger. So now it's the important bit. Since it's a transition, we don't need these particles dropping constantly. So in a primitive emitter, we can tick on or tick off respawn enable. Hence, it's gonna happen once and it's done. In fact, velocity can be higher. And the very velocity could be wider in the range. Boom. Definitely better. Maybe a bit too fast. I'm hitting home all the time to restart it. In fact, I can be smarter. I can come back to the timeline view. If I hold Control Alt, I can squeeze it or extend it. So I think I'm gonna move it to something like, well, I can actually do that manually. So I will set it 0, 0, 5 seconds, please and thank you. And I can hit on the bracket key and just reduce it. Since I reduced it, but these nodes are still there, I'm gonna hit right key and I'm gonna go scale children to parent length. Because children should respect their parents. Okay, cool. This is almost done. Obviously, this should be geometry. So clone to particles is our friend yet again. Let's give this particle system for it. Let's grab a shape 3D. Connect it. I know for a fact that it's a very small number, 5. So I'm going to put it to 1500 straight away. Hit home. Super huge. Make it smaller, Armin. Yes, I will. Can you make it random? Absolutely. Should there be a light fixture? No doubt. So voxel cone lighting, because now everything is super flat. So again, just like previously, we need bounding box. That bounding box should be approximately the size and shape of our camera output. Maybe something like that. Okay, cool. So now the magic button, deferred rendering, yes, anti-aliasing, high dynamic range, all of those are up and running. Good, good, good. Bit wider, bit taller. Okay, there we go. So this is our transition. Obviously it should be, what's going on here? Why do, because it's going forward. So let's just move all bounding box a little bit forward. Yes. Yes, yes, very good. Gradient for point renderer. We do want those little particles. We don't want them to be in the square, so let's change it to a radial gradient instead. Let's bump down the numbers here. Good. Let's make it more random. Let's make it additive. Let's check it again. Very good. Environment mapping, yes please, and please can you work together with voxel cone? So we are connecting it to the third input here. We do need an image. That image was, I presume it was this one. Yes it was. Third input here. This is set. Very good. Now we need some kind of a material on this shape 3D, and we are almost there. So material, environment map, yep, much nicer. Bit of color here. Let's add a color ramp for the primitive emitter, so the point render has a little bit more substance than just the white color. Let's be generous, let's go for 4 color gradient. Yeah, kind of something like that. And of course we should choose that it wouldn't refer to the input color but the emission time. And if anything, it could have a little bit, this point render could have a little bit of motion blur. So that's just gonna make it look a little bit more organic. When I say a little bit, it's actually quite a lot that I'm adding now. But obviously it might be hard to see in the screen, but there is a bit of a trail now to the points, which is quite nice. Okay, let's grab the post-production that we did in the previous setting and let's apply it here. Down. No, it's the radial blur that goes here. 5-0, yes.
I didn't say anything that time, I can't even take credit for it.
Okay, fine. Appreciate it. Film grading, maybe a little bit more of gamma. Yeah, this blur, it's not nice. A bit smaller like this. So, this is more or less done, but there's one specific thing that we haven't done yet and is super crucial to be done. That is alpha. Basically, if we just take this layer and we drop it into Disguise or some other media server, this will be with a black background. And obviously we want to use this as an overlay. So we can set the alpha blending in the root node for a specific layer. In this case, the blend mode is set to solid and we want this blend with alpha. And there we go. So now this layer has alpha. In fact, I could probably showcase it here, but I will just showcase this in a media server. So let's recap on what we accomplished, because we did quite a bit, and I hope you're still with me and not uber bored. We built a main setting. Main setting will be addressed with the open hook for the media server or WebGUI. So we will be able to type in the name here. Name there. We will be able to change the logo and we will be able to change the background image here. So basically any random thing we want to keep for the background. It could be camera production, it could be just a video that you made, or still depending on what you choose. Then we made a nominee section. Nominee section is referring to CSV. CSV first point is the name of the category, so Hydra Awards apparently. Then we have six contesters to being punched by Captain America. Am I correct? Yes.
I believe so.
Yep, all of them are reflected in these positions here. So we will have to expose the camera productions. Perhaps that's a good thing to do now, because all in all, what we want to do is to be able to put either a picture provided by a customer beforehand or a camera production in Disguise now, or any other media server. I'm referring to Disguise because I actually built this in Disguise just to see that all runs, and I'm going to show you that. Yeah, so I think it's much cooler if it's camera production. To be honest, it's very nice when a person with the camera approaches the table where the person is nominated, is sitting there and tries to smile and look happy when he's actually really nervous and stuff. So it's super cool. I think it's much better approach than to put a picture. So with that said, I'm going to grab the video loader. I'm going to expose property and I'm going to call this signal 1. Because it's good then to be able to refer to names in the media server as well. So I'm gonna expose this video to signal 2 and 6. There we go. So now we are able to dynamically change these proxy pictures with the camera production should we choose. Obviously we can open more parameters for, let's say, particle drop and you name it. We can tweak and tweak and tweak till the bitter end of time. Or we can move on to the next layer, which is a winner. A winner is again grabbed dynamically via CSV table entry. It is just another point. So in this case is the number 8 in our CSV file, but a number 9 in the award list. Again, 0 is referred as a digit or as a value, so hence a little mismatch of the numbers. Now, obviously, if you make a very complex award ceremony and you have like, I don't know, 15 categories and 20 nominees for each, you can do that all with one CSV file, but you have to be cautious on numbering. So as long as you keep a good track on the numbering system and you don't lose it, you are pretty much good and good. And yeah, the last thing we have is the transition. which spawns once, and it has alpha channel. Now, media server use. Now, obviously I can show you how to hook this specific file in a media server, but I think for a brief moment, for 5 minutes, I'm gonna open up a new file and I'm gonna show you a very simple example of how to expose a video and how to expose, let's say, a variable on a 3D setting. I think it's good because otherwise things can get a little bit messy. Obviously I exposed quite a few things, so just to sort of solidate that and to recap, let's do that in a very, very simple setting. So I'm grabbing a new layer. I'm awkwardly waiting while it's loading. It's doing that quite fast. Good for me. Yep, don't need any recoveries. I need a blank file. Untitled is just fine as a naming convention. Just make sure that I cover the whole screen. Very good. I will need a video proxy. So I'm just gonna grab the very same video of artist performing. I'm gonna grab image 2D. So what I'm doing now, I want to expose a simple camera input for a media server. In this case, maybe here I am building some fancy video effects, and I want to swap out the proxy video in a media server with the actual camera production. All I have to do is grab the video loader that I was working with, click on a question mark in a video bracket, click on expose property. Done. So then project, compile block for media server. Yes, I want 64-bit version. I'm gonna go to documents, D3 project, start, objects, notch files, IMAG sample. Now this is exactly what we did for our background, what we did for nominee pictures. Okay, cool. Let's try to find this in Disguise. So I'm gonna open this up. I think we can clean up my desktop a little bit. There we go. Yep. Let's open this one. We're gonna lose chat for a moment now because Disguise sort of overrules the screen. I hope that's fine. We're gonna be fast here. Cool. So let's make a proxy video. I'm just gonna call this video. I'm gonna type in video, and that just brings me to a option bar to grab a video. So in this case, this is a pre-recorded thing, but this could easily be a camera production. Now for us to apply notch on top of that, I'm gonna type in notch and notch again. Otherwise I can just scroll to generatives and find notch. And now I'm gonna go for IMAG sample. That's exactly what we just created. Cool, so with this done, now I have to say that, hey, Mr. Notch, grab this Mr. Video and work together. So I'm holding Alt, I'm arrowing one to the other, and now I can, in the video loader, choose video. Done. That's the basic IMAG. Now, 3D setting. Yep, you want to say something, Ryan?
Our faces cover parts of the Disguise GUI, so I'm not sure that people saw what just happened.
What happened?
When you were connecting the notch thing and then the notch block to, or the video to the notch block, then you did something in the top left and we couldn't see it because.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Faces.
Yep. I'll fix that. I will fix that. Just a second. I can show that when I'm doing the 3D setting. So file, new. When I mean 3D is just the exposable parameter. For instance, as we expose the, let's say, positional values, which we probably will. So let's give it a moment more. It's gonna open up. Blank project. Okay. Or in fact, let's use some of the nice presets available, and I'm damn sure that majority of you guys don't use those, even though they are there for your convenience. So I'm gonna go ahead and show a good example of using presets that are there. In this case, templates. I'm gonna go for templates, clone to 3D grid, please and thank you. All right, cool. So we have that. And what I want to control in a media server is this plane effectors position X. So I'm going to expose that, but notice it has a range, and in this case the range, the minimum and maximum by default is set to -1000 and 1000. That's too much. So it's much better to lock it to a specific numeric values that are appropriate. In this case, this makes sense from -10 to 10. Now, why is this important? Because you are making designs, and maybe it's not you who's running the show, maybe it's an operator. He doesn't really know what you were working for. He doesn't know what design you were creating. So it's good for him to have the boundaries that he shouldn't exceed so that he can deliver as good of a show as you intended to make. Okay, so we expose this parameter. We set minimum and maximum value. We're gonna go for compile block for media server. 64-bit, yes please. And let's call this 3D. Okay, okay. So I can easily just close this off. I'm gonna close this off. I'm gonna come back to this guy's UI. So Ryan mentioned that there was a camera in the way, so I'm gonna move the little panel that appears and make sure that you guys see it. Right, so let's make a new layer. So I'm exporting a new layer. I'm gonna call this notch, hit OK, and I'm gonna scroll to generatives. Yep, there it's notch. So here, this is the panel that I've got, and under the effects I have a whole list of plausible or loaded in blocks. So in this case, I'm gonna grab the 3D. Done, that's it, it's there. And the very parameter that we opened up is available for us to animate with, well, you name it, a timeline, MIDI, DMX, or OSC, whatever is your vice. So obviously, a very natural thing now would be to think that, oh, all right, so we build a whole award ceremony thing here. I probably would need to have options to control the positional values. That means I have to open like a ton of parameters. Well, I'm just gonna quickly save this off. Yep, live stream, that's the one. Yes, yes. So you would think that you need to open all and every parameter available. Well, I would actually advocate against that. I'm gonna open the file that you guys have because that's the file that is already preloaded to this guy's file, and I'm gonna show you a little bit the network editing. So network editing can save your show very big time, because obviously you can open all the parameters as we've just spoken, or you can live edit little tweaks that you prefer. So I have the sample that you guys have. I'm gonna open the very same disguise patch 2. Loading, loading, loading. There we are. I think I'm going to move this a little bit more to the center. As I've mentioned, all these things that we exposed, like the text and all awards, we can change it to a stream, all that and all that. Yeah, you guys are aware of it by now, surely. Maybe the M should be capital. But if I run into a situation or a wish from a customer and the customer says like, this is great, but can the text be a little bit to the left or right? As mentioned, you might as well think that it would be smart to open that as a parameter, or you could go for project, devices, network connections, connect, and find the very file running with a media server. So once it's connected, you can grab whichever the thing you want and reposition it, tweak it, recolor it. Let's say our customer has a very profound taste in things and he says, this is good, but it doesn't look expensive. Why is it not expensive? It needs glow. You can add glow as well. So one thing to remember though, when you're done making fixes and changes, this is direct edit, but this is not a direct save. Make sure to recompile and write on top. In this specific media server, I don't think you need to quit. Probably that's true to majority of media servers. Right, that's my whole shtick for the awards. Obviously, this is very much a proxy way of doing things, and I'm super sure that you guys are gonna come up with nicer things. But here, I just wanted to show you guys the options that you have to make things dynamic, either by controlling it directly from media server or by CSV files, by setting camera inputs, by even building a little 3D logo out of a 2D image. Now, I will be very happy to check out the comments, and I will ask Ryan if there was any questions that maybe needs answering now.
There was one relating to particle collisions.
Okay.
Which was basically how can we set up particle collisions and how easy are they to use. And I sort of covered that, but maybe we could go more in depth. Just take one of your layers with particles moving down, just have them collide off of the text.
Oh yeah, well, I was actually planning to do a new one. Maybe I'll just build it from scratch very fastly. Obviously, this is all recorded, so if you guys want to check it out for later use, you can. If you're not interested in Q&A, just open a beer or put on that one more cup of coffee, depending on where you guys are at the moment. Right, so I think I'm gonna make it even simpler. I'm gonna go for the particle root. And I'm gonna go for the primitive emitter. Let's make it into a plane, for instance. I'm gonna turn on the grid. I'm gonna pump it a bit up. I'm gonna add a shape 3D. So this will be our collider, basically. So for us to have collision, there's two effectors needed. Obviously, we need a renderer as well. So I'm adding point renderer now. As you see, there is no motion, so he's just hanging there. Yep, so let's add SPH. Ryan, what's SPH?
Smooth particle hydrodynamics.
Very good.
I can eat a cookie tonight.
Yeah, you deserve that, mate. You definitely do. I'm going to reduce the particle number to, let's say, like 5,000. We don't need more. So now we have dynamics. Now we have properties to particles that it has some kind of a pull or gravity, and that's great. So for us to make the particle system to interact with the shape 3D, we will add one more node that's called collision. So collision effector connected to the particle root, and collision effector has an input for the object. That's where we're gonna pipe it in. And if I scroll in just enough, you will see that it's colliding. It's happening. So there we have a little bit of a simulation. Does that answer the question then?
Yeah, that seems about right. The next one was somebody missed the WebGUI section, so if we could go back to that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So WebGUI.
Just quickly take this, yeah.
Just to mention, WebGUI can be used for the, let's say, performance. WebGUI could be used for previewing things with the customer. Like I for example, like to show things, the dynamic things, let's say in a meeting with a WebGUI, because it's so easy. You don't need any extra controller, you don't need any media server, nothing. You just open a WebGUI, type in localhost, and you're good to go. So let's do something with this setting. I'm gonna make this cooler. So I'm gonna add clone to particles. There we go. Let's give this particle system to this cloner. Let's give a shape 3D. Again, the number of particles here is small, so 1500. Well, 10 too many. Scale, I know for a fact it's going to be too big. Yep, cool, much better. Maybe some lighting. So voxel, cone lighting, box. Bounding box, that's needed too. Let's make it bigger. Let's turn on the high dynamic range, deferred rendering, and anti-aliasing. Not perfect, but it's going to be enough to prove the point. Cool, so let's say we want to control dynamically the best setting in the world, glow. So I'm adding glow, and I'm going to give it a bit of threshold. And what I want to control in the WebGUI is the blend amount. So I'm gonna hit on the question mark, expose property. Okay, well actually, since it's a glow and it's a value of 0 to 1, I'm just gonna set that in 0 to 1. Okay, project, settings, WebGUI enabled, and this is the port, 8911. Well, basically I'm gonna do another one, 1111, why not? So now if you come back to my web browser and type in localhost 1111, hit enter. Let's start the playback. There we go. Dynamic glow. Everybody's happy. Customer has things that is shiny, and you have a customer that is happy. Any other questions?
And there's this last question by Chris Vosper, wondering about setting up a projected texture on the transition particles in the nominees layer. To be honest, I don't quite follow the question. I can kind of see what you mean, but there's so many different ways you could do that it really depends on what the actual effects you're looking to do.
Yeah,
so,
I guess
it might be a better question for the user group after this than us to hack around and try and figure out exactly which kind of look you're trying to do.
Yeah, obviously this will be shared in the user group and on YouTube. By the way, for a person who is watching this on YouTube, please join Facebook user group. It's a nice community of interesting people sharing things and thoughts. If you're not there yet, you're missing out. Please join it. So obviously this will be posted in both places. We can take it in comments there. Hopefully we can swap the example files. And was it Chris asking this? Chris Fosbury said no? Yeah, so basically we can come back to this question there, if that's okay. All right, cool. So are we done then? Is that it? Is that the...
Does anyone have any last minute burning questions before Armin and I are presumably allowed to go get our dinners?
Yep, we're gonna go to slumber. Yeah, Chris says, hi, sure, no problem. All right, cool. So, all right, guys, thank you for sticking around for quite a 2 hours. Hopefully there was something useful. And again, this will be available for later use. So yeah, thank you for joining. And I'm gonna make a last sound effect for today for Ryan for giving some nice tips. He deserves that. All right, guys, thank you very much, and see you in the next stream.
Goodbye.